Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tokucast Reviews. Before we get started though, I feel it would be remiss if we didn't mention the community of Toku lost a legend recently with the passing of Jason David Frank. And the fact that he was so young and how we lost him, I think is what made it hit the hardest for me. So I just want to, at the beginning of this episode, I just want to tell you all, everyone is fighting a battle that you don't know, as John Campia so well put it. I think if you know someone who is struggling with something, or you yourself are struggling with something, please reach out. Please, I encourage you to seek help. I've been pretty open with my struggles about depression as well on this channel, and it can make all the difference. Even if you feel like you might be bothering someone, or they might be bothering you sometimes, believe me, it can make all the difference just to reach out and ask for help. The links for the suicide prevention hotlines and services are going to be in the description of this video. So thank you all for joining us. And there was absolutely no smooth... Yes.
Before we do that, I know there's like this whole campaign going on right now called Embrace the Awkward. Don't be afraid to have those awkward conversations with your friends or your loved ones or anything like that. I know it might be uncomfortable, but literally embrace that, because you never know what you could be doing for that person.
Mm-hmm. Or yourself.
Yep.
The following is a fan-based discussion. All properties discussed are property of Toei Inc., Bandai, Hasbro, and Tsuburaya Productions. But here we go, episode number 143, Tokucast Reviews. Back to Kamen Rider with Black Sun.
Yes.
Our newest in the remakes.
Yes.
A remake of Kamen Rider Black.
In which we still have one left to do.
Which is...
Shin Kamen Rider, which will be coming out next year.
Oh, right, yeah.
But yeah.
I'm looking forward to that one.
I am too. I'm waiting for the movie. They released some more promotional material for it, so I'm sort of excited. But yeah, Black Sun.
Where the heck do we start?
That's a great question, because this show doesn't really have an opening. It's like an instrumental.
True. But I will say this: I like that theme, because it's played throughout the series, like a lot of theme songs in Toku are. And you know it's usually just that couple of notes, dun 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 dun, and they'll play it on the piano to underscore scenes, and I think it's effectively used.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to go by like an episode for this, simply because it is new, and usually when something has just ended or just come out, we don't tend to do that because go watch it.
Yes. So spoilers abound.
Yeah.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, this is a recent show.
Yes. I will say, I quite liked more of this show. There were some things towards the end where I'm just like, wow, that's a choice.
Oh yeah. We'll get to it. I'm sure we will.
But I still really like this. I really like the characters. I will say, some parts of this show were exceedingly, and I hate using this word, but it was very triggering for me.
I can understand why.
Like, there was a lot of the parallels with, not even parallels, just straight up was, the racism that happens with the protests and the counter-protests and all of that happens. It felt a little bit too real.
There is one moment at the end, especially, where I nearly had a heart attack.
Was it episode 7, where like everything happens?
No, it was episode 10. It was the last episode.
Oh.
It's a moment in the last episode. Because it was like, oh, that's a little too real to something a little too recent.
Yeah. My thing was episode 7, when
You're talking about Shunsuke, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where he was lynched for...
He gets lynched in front of his parents' house.
Yes.
And his body is on display.
And Nobuhiko is there.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my god. Because he humiliated, like, the racist
the leader of the racist movement,
who
doesn't consider himself racist.
No, and that's always the danger.
Because he's like, no, racism is when humans don't like other humans, and kaijin are not humans. So the basic setup for this show is we have humans coexisting, well, not peacefully, but there are humans that live in the same world as kaijins.
Yes,
or should I say, kaijins live in the same world as humans, and kaijins, they look like you and me. They look like regular people, but they can turn into monsters.
Yes.
Animal-esque monsters. And our show opens, and there is two opposing protests. One of them is, we hate kaijins, get out, die, we don't like you. And then the other one is, hey, can you maybe stop being dicks?
And
can we coexist, please? It's the peaceful protest. And
I love the backdrop of the UN being an actual thing in this, and Aoi speaking there multiple times. Just as a 14-year-old girl. But.
Yeah, we have our main character aside from Kamen Rider is Aoi. We have a young girl. She's in middle school. A lot of progressive ideas about humans and kaijins coexisting. She's speaking at the UN. She's a real protege in the world of politics and growing up. And she's speaking at the UN. She's there with the Prime Minister of Japan, Prime Minister Domami. And we'll get to it. And so she's there, and one of her best friend is a kaijin who goes to school with her, Shunsuke, who's a sparrow, I believe?
Yeah.
Sparrow chicken. He's a cute little bird.
And his father's human.
Yes. And on the way home from school that day, they get attacked by a spider kaijin. We get like little glimpses of Gorum, if I'm saying it right.
Gorum.
The Gorum, which is a political party in this.
Gorgum.
Gorgum, thank you. But the Gorgum party, which is like an actual political party as opposed to a cabal of monsters,
like they were in the original Black,
which is pretty cool, and runs afoul of a spider kaijin, and then
who was sent after her.
Yes, who was sent after her to kidnap her, and then Black Sun shows up. We see him a little bit throughout the episode, but then he shows up in that first episode, and they have a fight, and the end of this fight is like where I knew I was on board.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's brutal.
Yeah.
In a way that Toku has never been before. There has been plenty of brutality in Toku before. A lot of it's been implied.
Unless you're Amazon, where it's just right there.
Well, here's the thing. I feel like this show was giving me what Amazon's was promising.
A point,
but a point, it's good, yeah, but Amazon's felt like, I'm 16 and this is so dark and it's so cool and look at how awesome and violent it is. And then Kamen Rider Black Sun feels like a show made by adults.
Yeah.
It feels like a show made and written by grown-ass adults who are taking a child-friendly source material and adding layers of, I don't want to say subtext because it's like actual text.
I heard there was text here.
There was text here. It's quite big and large and impossible to miss.
It's glowing.
But, yes, in neon lights. So they're going to add like all these different flavors and different elements from the real world, but also just different genres. And we're going to add those to this. And we're going to layer it up and change it up in a way that's going to... It still feels like a Toku show.
Yeah.
But we're going to change things in a way that it's like we're going to take some risks and change some things where it feels like an adult who was thinking made this as opposed to a teenager who was like, I'm so cool and you won't believe how cool this is. Yeah, it's so gory. I love it.
Although, to be fair, some of that gore was very tastefully done. That first fight against the Spider Kaijin, where the Spider Kaijin tried to get away, and Kildaro like punches into his stomach and grabs his intestines.
Into his stomach and pulls out his intestines, and he tries to run away, and he just yanks back up.
And I was like, "This is the coolest thing."
And then he finishes him off by like getting him down, clawing at his neck, and ripping his freaking head off.
It was so cool,
and
I felt so 12.
It's so well. I think this is one of the big differences is Kamen Rider Black Sun, all of the gore, there's a lot of it. It feels very blunt and matter of fact.
Yeah.
Whereas Amazon's felt much more stylized.
Shock value?
I don't want to say shock value, but it felt more stylized.
It was a lot more blood spurting in Amazon's, and this one just like it feels more.
The blood was also almost all the blood was CG.
Yeah,
and in this one, almost all the blood is practical. Almost all of it is practical, or at least that's another thing. Is this show feels gritty? There is a verisimilitude to this show.
It feels a lot like Black. Where it's just a lot of grit in this show.
I mean, you think about like back to the opening of Kamen Rider Black, not the theme song, but like the opening of the show, we'll
talk about the theme song later.
Where his dad, rescues him, and he comes in and he's on the operating table, dig it all, and that happens, and he's running through the streets, and he's like, like in a state of undress, and there's people in hoods pursuing him through the streets in the shadows. It's like that,
yeah,
but turned up to a level of maturity for 2022.
Yeah, especially because this takes place both this year and in 1972, so we get to see everything that happened in the past.
Dude,
with Oliver.
Oh my goodness! Something that I never thought Toku would remind me of?
What?
Judas and the Black Messiah.
How do you mean?
I mean, the way we follow our characters going to these protest rallies in a period piece, and there's somebody there talking, and somebody from across the room catches the eye of a pretty girl, and then they get involved in this, and then this happens, and it's just like the way it is reminding me of like period pieces that deal with like the Black Panther movement in the 60s and 70s.
I got a lot of that.
Yeah.
With Oliver being there, I got a lot of that.
Oh my god, like, for one, like, 10 out of 10 Toku performance, it's like all the acting in this show is great.
It's very good.
All the acting in the show is great, but like, Oliver being there.
He said that he came over here because and decided to fight because it reminded him a lot of the things that were going on in the States.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, during this time period, that makes an increasing amount of sense.
Yeah, because it's 1972. Yeah. Jeez, like it is a place that I never expected this show to go.
Yeah,
like that, and not only that. I mean, one of the things I have to praise about the show, it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
this show is gorgeously shot. One of the things I couldn't stand about Amazon's was how ugly it was.
It was very saturated.
It was very desaturated.
Yeah,
it was very desaturated. It was very gray, very blue, and it just looked very ugly. This one. The colors are, like, it's a muted palette, but it still looks nice. They use a lot of really good camera angles. There's some really good long takes. There's some really good wide shots. And when it is impossible. They don't need title cards to tell you when you go back in time.
No. They
do such a good job of costuming everyone.
The clothes are the main thing.
The clothes, it's the hair and makeup.
Oh my god, the hair.
I mean, it's the 70s. What are you going to do?
Japan, but I'm sitting here like,
what you going to do?
We just sat through this, so Kamen Rider 71.
Yeah.
It was painful then, it's painful now.
But, the hair and makeup, the outfits, but also they changed the color palette ever so slightly.
Yeah.
It's a little more sepia toned. It's a little more desaturated. So instantly you're like, oh, I know where we are. I don't need a title card for this. I know exactly where we are.
They don't pull a Kiva. Although I did sort of like the way that they did it in Kiva because they usually focus on like a calendar or something going back technology-wise. So it was sort of interesting that they did.
I think one of my problems with Kiva was like it looked the same and everyone dressed the same, no matter what time period it was.
I don't think everybody dressed the same.
At least that's how it felt to me. I also just didn't like Kiva at all. But back to this.
I will say one of the things I really liked about this was Nobuhiko. It was very odd seeing this because you always expect somebody to play the Martin Luther King to somebody's Malcolm X.
To the Malcolm X, yeah.
And Nobuhiko was very much so Malcolm X in this case.
Yeah.
But Kotaro was not Martin Luther King.
He was not Martin. It was like, what would be a real world analogy?
Well, Kotaro basically tried to stay out of everything and defeat the Creation King at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that,
just a third party.
Yeah, he was really just a third party in all of this. I
guess you could say that Aoi would be like Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Aoi would be
because she wants to bring the people together more than anything else. Mm-hmm. And actually, that's probably a good one. Yeah. For her. But Kotaro is really a third party who has his own goal, but it just so happens to line up with Aoi's. Aoi. And
I loved their relationship.
I did too.
The way it becomes a surrogate father-daughter relationship so quickly. And
especially with her dad and mom being not there for most of this.
Yeah, because they had to leave the country.
Because they were working on...
Because they're in hiding.
Yeah, they were working on everything with really getting the Kaijins back together with society before she was. And I think one of the main things that sort of threw me off with that is how tied in they were to the Kingstones. Because the Kingstones did not feel the most organically introduced thing in the show to me. They felt a little bit taken out because the Kaijins were all implanted with stones.
Because we eventually find out that the Kaijin, like their entire race, is the result of human experimentation.
For super soldiers, pretty much.
Because the Japanese government, the current prime minister, his grandfather, he wanted to create an army of super soldiers and have Japan rely on its own defense force, its own army, that it didn't need to rely on any kind of foreign support. That's where the Kaijins came in, and, like one thing led to another, like the program got shut down, things happened, and now Kaijins are just out in the world.
Yeah, they created a little bit too many and they started breeding. So, yeah. But the thing is, the fact that the grandfather knew about it, and Donami being the absolute worst. And I was so happy by the end of this show. So unbelievably happy.
I was happy with what happened with him, for sure, but he's
a slimy politician.
Because we actually do meet him a lot in the flashbacks.
Yeah, he gets kidnapped.
Because he gets kidnapped by the Gorgon party.
Yeah.
And his grandfather as well is just such a slimy bastard in the way. Because one of them, I forget which one it is, which Gorgon it was, but I think it started Darom, that's it. I was like, I knew it started with D, but he essentially submits himself to the will of Prime Minister Michinosuke, and is like, it's like, fine, the Gorgon party is at your disposal. We will, as long as you protect us, then our goals will align.
Yeah,
and essentially that, and just Dorum, just like all the performances in this show are so good. Like, just Dorum is like, he's like, he cares about the safety of the Kaijin people to the point that he's willing to just
be subservient
to humans. Yeah. And when Nobuhiko finally takes over, he's just like, that ain't gonna happen anymore. Yeah. But Domami, though, because when we meet him in the flash, because when we first meet him, he seems to be a very caring person, but then as he moves away from the crowd, he's like, I hate these Kaijins, and I hate Aoi, and I hate everything, and and then we go back into 1972, and he's just like this spoiled rich kid.
He's the worst.
He's this spoiled rich kid who's, the product of nepotism.
Do you know who my grandfather is?
Do you know who my grandfather is? I'm rich. And it's like, when you see more of him back then, and you see as he became now, it's like, he never grew up.
No.
He's still, even in his older age, he's still that
very spoiled,
slimy, spoiled, I'm gonna have everything because I want it and it's rightfully mine, little bastard that he is. Do you want to talk about his ultimate fate?
Because if we talk about that, we got to talk about Nick.
We do. We have to talk about Nick. What did you think of Nick?
I liked him. It's good, and I will always say this in the Toku show, because look at my skin tone. We are not in Toku a lot. And usually when we are, we somehow end up becoming the villains. I'm looking at you, Mr. J from Fies. Or the Kate Sith one from Wizard.
From Wizard, yeah.
But it's always good to see somebody who looks a lot like me.
I was
in a more positive role. Although Nick was not always the best guy. He wanted to become a Kaijin.
He was not, but I think he winds up redeeming himself at the end.
Yeah.
Because he makes a pretty big mistake that winds up damning Aoi.
Yeah. Where she ends up getting turned into
a Kaijin. She gets turned into a Kaijin.
By Biogenia. Nick is the son of Oliver Johnson, who is... Honestly, I wish they did a little bit more with him. But Oliver sets up
more father and son scenes. Maybe.
Because Nick is Oliver's kid.
I was gonna say, there's been 2 recent Toku. The first one I would say is Lupin. We have Commander Hilltop. But I mean, great character. He's not a villain, but he doesn't get enough. He's a light, fun character.
Yeah.
And then we go into Black Sun, and we have Nick and we have Oliver, who are, to see. I mean, because it's a different country. Usually they are going to cast Japanese people, but to see a person of color in Toku in a dramatic, serious role, where they're playing,
especially a prominent one,
a prominent, dramatic, serious role where they have like ideals that are things that people can that people can strive for. Yeah. They're not villainous. The way they may go about it may seem extreme to some, but it's not. Talking about Nick here specifically, but it's in a way that feels believable. Yeah, they feel like real people.
And it's such a weird dichotomy seeing something like that when, especially, they aren't the ones being discriminated against, but the parallel for their skin tone is the kaijins. Like, especially that first scene when you first meet Nick and Aoi and Shinsuke
they're in a cafe.
They're in a cafe and Shinsuke gets kicked out.
Well, yeah, because it's just Nick and Aoi are in there. They're just like having coffee. They're talking, and then Nick sees Shunsuke sees them through the window, and he just comes in to say hi. And the waitress comes up to him and is like, "Get out of here!
We don't lounge your kind.
We don't serve your kind here. It's that."
And I'm sitting there like, "Oh, the parallel."
But then when Aoi goes to leave, the waitress is very polite to her, and she's like, "You're racist. Piss off.
I'm never coming back.
I'm never coming back to this racist place." And that was a great scene.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, it hurts. It hurt. It felt too real to me in some cases. I felt so uncomfortable, but I think that's a good thing in this case because
not everything needs to make you feel good.
Yeah, and this is one of those cases like, oh, this is really recent history, so it's just like, oh, ugh. And then you still got people.
They get into that. They also get into human trafficking with kaijins because Domami is also the head of like a kaijin trafficking ring. Where it's like. And
buy these kaiju.
Buy these guys. We see an auction. Yeah. In like a little hidden bar, and the girl, then like the ring girl they have there, for lack of a better word, gets freaking mauled by one of the kaijin, just rips into her neck, and it's like, no, everyone, settle down. Let's move on to the next slaughter
auction.
It was
like a legit slave auction.
Yeah.
And it was just.
And because Domami talks, he's like, people, whether it's a bodyguard, whether it's servants, whether it's sex dolls, people want these things for them to use. I didn't expect the show to go there either, but it did.
But Nick does end up getting turned into a kaijin later on.
Into a cricket, yeah.
Yeah, after being promised by Bilginia. But yeah, Nick ends up getting turned into a kaijin.
Which Bilginia, good character.
Great character.
Good character.
Nick ends up killing Donami at the end of the show.
He kills Donami with a clothesline from hell. My goodness,
because there's a claw on the inside of
his cricket arms. Yeah, but because one of the bats, who was the bat kaijin, who was also working for
Komori, I loved him,
and because they're. This big scandal just happened. Yeah. Because Aoi, like, leaked all the evidence saying, like, how kaijins were created. And now, like, everyone knows it. So it's like, oh, Prime Minister, you might have to resign, blah, 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 blah. And then his I think it's his aide or his assistant, his second in command. Yeah. They're driving in the car.
He has mistreated throughout the entire show.
He's mistreated throughout the entire show. And he's like, Domami's really got to piss. So they stop at, like, an alley. And Nick comes out, his kaijin form, and he turns around and he sees the bat. He's like, oh, hey, this weirdo's chasing me. Guy on one leg hobbles up to him, kicks him. Nick just clotheslines the shit out of him, and the top of his head gets brutally, gorily, gloriously decapitated.
And then the aide and the driver just
you see him, it's just like a little shot of him just like looking out the window, very cold, very calculating. Window rolls up, car drives off.
Because they were all in on it.
Yep. And then he becomes Prime Minister at the end.
Okay. Wouldn't be surprised if this does get a sequel. I almost don't want it to. But with some things that we haven't talked about, because we have not really talked about Kotaro or Nobuhiko or Aoi.
That's the thing. We haven't really talked about Black that much. We haven't talked about
we talked about everybody else.
Show.
But yeah, it's just I almost expect the Black RX from
Kotaro. Yeah, but hopefully better. That's the thing.
That's the
thing. Kotaro is the man in black. He is the mysterious stranger throughout all this.
Because both he and Nobuhiko were implanted with the Kingstones prior.
So
prior to the show starting.
So yeah, like they, it's like two people, like brothers, joining a political movement. Things happen. A love interest gets in the way. That love interest dies, and then he gets locked in a cellar for good knows how many years.
Probably good 50.
Something like that, because it was like from the 70s to present day. He's been locked down there, and he hasn't aged.
Yeah,
not the way Kotaro has.
Because they keep eating heaven, which is something from the Creation King, and we find out that heaven is later made from heaven is people.
It's people. Guardian is people. Yeah, so heaven has amazing restorative and because it brings Shunsuke back from the dead, essentially,
or when he gets his head stomped in,
when he gets his head squished
by anemone.
Yes,
in the second episode,
that scene, yikes!
Yeah, where his eye just pops out, and you're just like, oh, but
his eye pops out, but also like his head, like his neck distends and his head like drifts away a little bit. It's like, oh goodness.
The thing about this, though, I love the fact that this, I'm going to say the second and final time that Shunsuke dies, Nobuhiko's there. And that's sort of the thing that pushes Nobuhiko over the edge. Mm-hmm. Seeing Shunsuke just strung up.
Yeah. He's not there when he's killed, but he does find the body.
No, yeah. Because Nobuhiko was walking past and the parents know him because it's just like he's been taking care of his son. Their son, keep an eye out for him. And then the blood drips down along with a feather.
Yeah.
And that's when
and that's when the dad looks up, and the sound design in the scene. Because the dad is like freaking out, and the mom looks up and she starts to freak out. But then like the first time she screams, her volume is lowered.
Yeah.
And then the music, it's like all you can hear is the music playing.
And then a slow down, and she faints.
And she faints, and it's just like people are screaming and freaking out, but like all you can hear is the music.
Yeah. And there's also this police officer.
Yeah, this guy
who's around for the protest. Jerk. Yeah, he's not the best person.
No, he's not.
It's like he keeps trying to do the right thing, but he doesn't ever do it.
He wants to do the right thing and he wants to keep order is what he wants.
That's the main thing.
And it seems like the only way he knows how to keep order is to keep Kaijin subservient.
Yeah.
And because he spends a lot of time just yelling at people. But we need to talk about his inevitable demise.
So Bill Genia is not a good person.
No.
He was actually working under Donami for most of this.
Yeah.
As basically...
He killed Nobuhiko's love interest because he found out that she was actually a spy
back in 1972
for the prime minister. And that caused a rift between them to begin with there.
And Bill Genia basically just operates as the right hand muscle for
he's the muscle.
And Bill Genia actually ends up killing Aoi's mom and turning her father into a kaijin.
Yeah,
into the wani kaijin crab. Which leads to probably the most unintentionally hilarious scene in this entire show.
What's that?
Where he's like has the one crab arm and he's like bubbling out of the mouth and everything and going up the stairs like this. It's so unintentionally
You thought that was funny, okay.
That was so funny just seeing him just wobbling up the stairs.
He does like crab walk and he does like a little bit of a swivel.
Yeah, so it's so unintentionally funny.
A little bit of Fantastic Beasts in there.
And like Aoi ends up going with him before Kotaro finds out that he's been turned into a kaijin, and then which leads to a fight between Kotaro and Nobuhiko, which is sort of good in this case because they are explicitly not on opposite sides. More than not, they're on the right side. It's just how we get to a certain point is very opposite. But yeah, Bill Genia is just not a good person. And the reason why we bring him up in terms of the cop is because
it's the scene where Aoi is broadcasting to the UN and all over the world. She's telling everyone that she's been turned into a kaijin. She's showing all the evidence, giving this great speech. And we cut to, because she's in the bus where Kotaro lives, broadcasting this, and we just see this huge platoon of like cops with like full riot gear
and Virginia and guns. They definitely have it made up because Virginia turned Aoi.
It's an uneasy alliance.
It's very uneasy.
It's enemy of my enemy is my enemy.
But they end up going to meet the scientists that turned both Kotaro and Nobuhiko initially. It was their dads.
Yeah.
That did all of this, and they both end up there at the same time, end up asking him a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Virginia ends up offering her a ride back, but there's a scene earlier where she beats the shit out of him after Kotaro rips his arm off.
Yeah. A lot of people lose limbs in the show.
They do, but she's like, I could kill you at any time. And he was like, might as well just go ahead and stick close to me, because that way you know where I am when you want to kill me. But he ends up getting... I'm not going to say it's a redemption moment, but he gets a redemptive action that he gets to take.
He saves Aoi.
Yeah, he ends up saving her
by killing every single one of the cops,
including
who are coming there to arrest a child.
Yes, including the one from earlier who was there. And the violence in this scene.
He just unleashes just because he has I forget what the sword is called, but the red one.
Yeah, the red one from the original Black.
Yeah, he has that sword, and he just starts wasting fools left and right.
Yep.
Just slicing them up, stabbing them. At one point, he stabs one into the ground, breaks the blade off because it gets stuck in the person he stabbed, and just starts killing people that way. You think he's about to kill the one like leader. He's about to finally kill him, but then he gets stabbed with a bunch of anchors.
Yeah.
He breaks free of those, kills him, kills them, and then...
Well, he actually isn't killing everybody else first. He like stabs the guy in the neck, but the guy's still going to go up to the bus, and then Virginia comes out there and kills him. And then Aoi, after she's finished spilling all the secrets and everything, comes out of the bus, and Virginia's just standing there. And she's like, goes up to her, she's like, Virginia's silent, but he's dead already.
Yeah.
He just saved her from everybody else. And I'm just like, this is wild. And I loved it. And we still have not talked about Kotaro and Nobuhiko. We talked about everybody else.
We've talked a little bit about both. I mean, again, getting back to Kotaro, he's the man in black.
Yeah.
He's the passing stranger, the one who is out for his own justice.
Especially when you have characters like Kujira, the whale, who we really haven't talked about that much. But I really like him.
I liked him too.
He ends up saving Aoi from her dad, and basically ends up being on their side after initially fighting Kotaro to try to get the Kingstone. But Kotaro and Nobuhiko end up having this whole thing with the Creation King, who's this big monster.
Great design.
Who we do not see get made until much later. He was first. And then all the heaven and everything.
Every time we're introduced to him in the flashbacks, you never see him.
No. He's like always in shadow.
It's in shadow, or we're looking at like a POV cam from like
behind
around like his midsection level, looking at whoever's looking at him. So that, but yeah, Nobuhiko takes over the Gorgon party.
Yeah,
and
after killing Darom,
because there's that great scene where Nobuhiko is confronting Darom about the choices he's made. And Darom calls them, it's like it's a necessary evil. There's sacrifices, like the trafficking, the front, everything. Shunsuke even, like that's necessary for the rest of us to stay alive. And he's like, not today, never again.
But Nobuhiko ends up having
you're out.
Some
you're
of
dead.
The Creation King's powers, which I swear is just the Force.
It's the Force. It's the Force. You can
because he does Force choke.
A lot of force choking.
The scene where Virginia comes up to him and like offers him his hand and everything, and Nobuhiko's like, "That's hilarious." So then he force chokes him and beats the shit out of him.
Yeah.
I love the fact that both Kotaro and Nobuhiko have an actual writer form.
Yeah.
In this,
because when we were first introduced to them, both Black Sun and Shadow Moon, they looked like very monstrous. It's kind of like Kamen Rider or Sheen. Like a grasshopper kaiji is what they look like. And then the first time we see Black Sun henshin, it's so cool.
It's so cool.
It's just because it's like, so all right, good. he's gonna do this because they kind of go like, and then like there's like a steam billow some like CG effects, and then like they morph into the monster, and he actually does like the pose and everything, and his belt like unfolds and refolds into a new belt.
And then the final fight between the two of them where they do like the mirrored version of each other.
That was so cool.
I freaked the hell out.
That was
and
so
then
cool.
Kotaro does end up getting killed by Nobuhiko at one point, but he comes back.
It's like getting stabbed in the MCU. You're fine.
Yeah,
you're
he
fine.
comes
Walk it
back
off.
They recreate the black opening.
They do in the beginning of the last episode. They like shot for shot.
I freaked out.
Same
so
locations.
Much.
It's not the same music. It's like a
No, it's the same music.
Is it the same song? It sounds different.
It's the same music.
No, I know it's the same song, but like, is it like a cover?
It might be a cover.
I think it's a cover is what I'm getting at, because it sounds, much more modern and clean. Yeah. But like the fact that they play that song and they recreate the opening shot for shot.
I screamed.
I cried. It was a bit of fan service I wasn't expecting, but it was still appreciated.
It was very
surprised
appreciated.
To show up at a welcome.
It was so good. I loved it. I was so sad. Yeah. Good it was everything I needed in that moment that I did not know I needed. All I know is it happened, and I a floor.
But then if we want to move on to the very end, where Kotaro has become the new Creation King
after he kills the previous
one, which that heart creeping around on the ground is so gross. Yeah. But I loved it. I loved it so much
because the Creation King
many great monster stuff in this.
He would not die.
Wouldn't die. And then
Joe Nami is getting a hold of the heart for a little bit too.
Yeah. And then
didn't work out for him
because it's like up on a hook, and then it just kind of flumps off and like uses it.
It's still beating.
It's still beating, and it's using the aorta and the veins to like creep over on the ground. I'm like, oh, that is so cool. I love that. And but Aoi goes in, and having like become the Creation King and not himself anymore,
who Aoi also ends up getting. She does the henshin.
Yeah, she does.
And I was like, "You better."
She has her own. She has her own rider form now, a mantis.
Well, no, that's just her monster form. She doesn't have her.
It is, but she has
she has a belt.
She has like the belt, and like I would argue that gives her a power boost and the ability to control it more.
Yeah.
It's a good looking suit too. That's one thing we got to mention. Every suit in this show, be it Kaijin or rider. So good looking.
I wanted her to have a much more proper rider suit because the Mantis one doesn't look the greatest.
I think it looks fine.
I'm not a fan of it. It's the eyes.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the whole head.
Anyway, but yeah, she fights Kotaro. Kotaro comes back to him, becomes himself again
for a little bit. And then he crumbles to dust.
And then he crumbles to dust. Like I'll die rather than hurting her. And then we cut to the not too distant future after, Domami's been killed and a few other things have happened. I want to mention, Nick's final words after he kills.
Remember Oliver Johnson?
Never forget Oliver Johnson!
I'm just like, oh my God, it's so black. I love it.
And we see that the second in command has now become Prime Minister. Mm-hmm. We cut to
the other one, Bill... Bisham has become his attendant. She was one of the other ones.
That scene of him relaxing in the Prime Minister's office,
and then her eyes glow.
Yeah, her eyes glow.
So something bad about to happen.
Some bad's going on there, of course. But
we also got to mention the third one, who is played by a little person, Baron, the Sabretooth, who has this whole scene where he refuses to go along with Nobuhiko, so he's getting chained up.
Yeah,
and then they bring him out in front of all the robed Kaijin, saying kill him or stab him if you want to follow me, and they all do. After Nobuhiko does it first.
Yeah.
It was a wild scene.
Yeah. Great character too.
Great character. Really,
I haven't really talked about him a lot, but
he doesn't do the most. He's the one who captures Nobuhiko initially.
Yeah.
But Nobuhiko's a lot stronger now, so he can't do that anymore.
Nope. But one of the big moments is because we see that Kaijin start to get choked out by the police. We see the...
oh my God. The Kaijin says, I can't breathe.
That's what I was referring to.
I had to pause it. It was...
It was too much. It was like knee on the neck saying I can't breathe. People are watching. People are filming. And I'm just like, this is a little too real. This is a little bit too real.
But it's so accurate of the struggle that we as black people go through. And I wasn't really prepared for that, but man, just the visceral reaction I had to that, I had to pause it and just get up and walk away. And I think that's a good thing in this case, to show on screen just like, you might not have seen this, but this is pretty much exactly what it was. And just how traumatizing that could really be for, especially the kaijin that were watching that, but just how traumatizing it could be for the parallel and the metaphor.
We cut to that, and then after that scene, we go to like some people are on a bus, and Aluma's like, wait, he's a kaijin. Driver, do you allow kaijins on this bus? And the driver on the loudspeaker, kaijin, get off. And then we cut to, it's like an underground mall. Some people are eating at a restaurant, and there's just, just like bigots on megaphones, like, hey, there's kaijins, they're bad, they're evil. And then,
like, these people just assaulting this one random kaijin lady, stealing her purse and everything.
They steal her purse. Well, they take it and they, like, throw it away. Because, like, you're not allowed to walk on the main road.
I think one of the things that, while I don't agree, though, with everything that Nobuhiko did, after Shunsuke dies, or is killed, rather, and Nobuhiko ends up finding the guy and crushes his head. I felt so validated.
That's when he gains his rider form, too.
I felt really validated in that moment because I felt that anger. And I felt...
From the instant that character... If you've ever heard the expression that somebody has a punchable face, that's this guy.
Yeah, he was the worst.
I mean, like, I'm not saying anything bad about the actor. I think he was perfectly cast. I think he acts the part perfectly. But that character just...
Deserved it.
You hate him so much.
He deserved it.
The fact that he's so bigoted, he's so racist, but he's utterly convinced he's doing the right thing. He has no problem with murdering a child because, as far as he's concerned, it's not really a person.
That child humiliated me.
Yeah, took a big old...
No, that thing humiliated
me. And, I mean, like, there's a scene earlier on in the episode where, like, somebody pushes him and he falls over and he's like, oh, they broke my leg. Playing
the victim.
Playing victim blaming. Just, like, one of the most hateable people you can imagine. And what are his final words? Please let me go.
Nope.
Just the fact that because the father is there and he's got a knife and like he
was going to kill him.
He charges out ready to stab him.
But Nobuhiko got there first.
Nobuhiko got there first, just grabs a hold of his head, lifts him up, and it's like, oh, where's all your big talk now, everyone? Everyone who was holding signs saying "Die kaijins die." All of a sudden, one of them stands up. You have no right to be shocked when somebody strikes back. If you keep hitting them.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to be shocked if that happens. And that's what happened to this guy. And then his final words are like pleading for him to let him go, for begging for his life. And he's just like, no. I don't even know if he says no. He doesn't.
No, he doesn't say anything.
He just like morphs into his rider form. He's glowing bright and then just crushes his head like a melon.
I was thinking like, that's...
It is the kind of violent retribution that you don't see often.
Yeah.
In Toku
but
like this.
Man, did it feel good. I'm not going to lie. It felt really good. It was like, I know this guy has to die by the end of this. And I'm happy that Nobuhiko was the one to do it. Man. I felt like...
But then, going back to the... Oh, sorry, go ahead if you want to say something.
I felt... What? Catharsis?
Cathartic is a good word, yeah.
Yeah. Just like catharsis through proxy. And yeah, I sort of got that in this case. I'm not like calling for violence or anything, but sometimes you can only take with so much. And I think Nobuhiko reached that point a long time ago. And I think a lot of us have reached that point a long time ago. So Nobuhiko just did it for us.
I was not expect this show to be as startlingly relevant as it was. And getting back to the very end of the show, when there's like a mob of bigots are out there protesting, "Hey, kaijins, get out of the country, kaijins!" And camera cuts over, and there's this one girl that's holding a little cardboard box that's been drawn with marker on it. It says "End discrimination." It's like "Stop discriminating," something like that. And a couple people walk by, they give her some money, and
one
person, some douche, knocks her over. And then we see someone pick up the sign, and then they offer their hand, and then the camera pans up, and it's Aoi dressed in all black, and she takes her essentially back to a compound where...
With all the graves of the people that it came before.
All the graves of the... Because Nobuhiko had started, his own little movement to go and free the...
This felt real African because it got real child soldierish up in here.
I will say this. The ending made me really depressed.
It did.
More than anything else. I think this is one of the most depressed I've ever been watching a Toku. Because
I did not feel good at the end.
Nothing... It's like the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
Because nothing... Like, Domami is gone. Like, the leader of that movement is gone. But the movement is still around. That new prime minister doesn't look like he's going to be much better. Even if he'll
give a lot of lip service, and that's about it.
He might be bad, but in a different way. Who knows? But now we have essentially Aoi forming an army of child soldiers and anyone else she can take in to fight back, and that's where the show ends.
Yeah. So
it ends with, if we do get a sequel, I think it's going to be much. It's probably going to be even darker and more dystopian.
It'll be a very different Black RX.
Oh, it's going to be an extremely different Black RX. Whew. Who knows if they'll even... They might just call it Kamen Rider Mantis or whatever, and have it just be about her. Who knows if they'll even bring back Nobuhiko and Kotaro back.
Although
Black Symbol... If they do a sequel, yeah.
Kotaro
is their flag.
Yeah, Black Symbol... He gets it later on. He comes on his suit, really near the end. Mm-hmm. But that is their flag now. So I would not be surprised if we get an RX from this. Just not the same.
Yeah.
Because Gorgom's still around.
Yeah.
So who knows what'll happen? I almost don't want that. I don't want the sadness that I know I will have to experience.
I was gonna say imagine the ending of this, but that's the whole show, and it's even worse now.
Yeah,
because it's headed straight for just a pure dystopian, Civil War hellscape is what the next one would be.
Where will Joe the Hayes show up?
Boy,
this show is very good.
The show is very good.
It's been a long time since I'm just I've had a lot of visceral reactions to this show.
Visceral reaction, it's one of the most exciting and interesting things to happen in Toku narrative, I would argue, since Garo VR.
And it's one of those things where it's just I'm looking at this and the I Can't Breathe thing, that spread worldwide. And I saw a lot of protests happening in Japan as well, so it's just oh. I'm happy that it was put into media from another country where this didn't even happen. But it made such an impact that they brought it into something that a lot of people were going to see. I really
Hopefully. It is streaming on Amazon Prime in the US.
Yes.
So
I would say you got to be in the right headspace for it, because Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Don't go in there if you like to use Toku as a fun escapist.
This ain't it, sis.
Which nothing wrong with that. That's what a lot of Toku is. But yeah, this is not your father's Kamen Rider Black.
This is not it. This is your Kamen Rider Black, and it's a lot worse.
But yeah, I think this show was very good.
Yeah. I think that's all we got to say.
I think that's all there is to say.
I'm just I feel a little bit emotionally drained talked about this show. Next time. I'm not sure which one we're going to do, but it's more than likely just to be safe. We're going to do Kamen Rider X next. And then we'll do Ultraman Decker.
The Underwater Kamen Rider.
And then we'll do Jakka. So when we come back, we will come back January 8th for the next show.
But yes, everyone enjoy your holidays.
Yes.
Last time we'll talk to you till then.
For those in the U.S., hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. Got those 3 coming up.
Yep.
I hope you really enjoy your holiday season. Hope you
Festivus for the rest of you.
Good deals. Things are expensive right now. It's true. Inflation is a bitch. But yeah, don't forget to join us all the things. Let us know what you thought about Black Sun in the comments below.
Please do.
And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching.